Advanced Studio Classroom is on the air. This is your advanced class, and our panelists today are...
I'm Hazel.
And I'm Brandon.
And I'm Doris. So stay tuned as we talk about stuff is not enough. We're glad that you could all come back and be with us during this Lunar New Year season. And it's interesting that January this year has the regular New Year that everybody uses all over the world and the Lunar New Year all in 1 month. It's kind of funny having 2 New Years in 1 month, Hazel.
Yeah, it is. But you have 2 chances to be a better person.
And you get vacation, too. Right?
Oh, even better.
That part, right?
That's right. That's important.
Don't you think that's strange, Brandon, being out in Asia, that you have a chance to have 2 New Years in 1 month?
It is strange for me. I'm not really used to that. I'm used to the January 1st New Year, but to have the Chinese New Year, it's quite exciting. And they're both in 1 month, so I get more time off. It's great.
Well, another thing that's exciting is that we all get little hongbao and stuff, and then that gives us more discretionary income, Hazel.
That's right. So we can go shopping.
And buy things we don't need, right?
Yeah, and then we have to find a place to put them.
Okay, there's a lot of rationalization involved in those statements, right?
That's right. You're trying to find reasons to buy new stuff, excuses to buy new stuff.
That's right.
I know. We could just go out and eat with it and use it up that way.
Oh,
well, that sounds good.
Okay, well, I think that's another article.
Oh, okay, that's another one, right? We'll have to leave that one for later. But, our article today that we're discussing is on page 41. It started on page 40, and it's called Stuff Is Not Enough. Would you like to review just a little bit about it, Hazel? Because we did use some of the words right now.
Well, sure. It talked about how even from the beginning, the first human beings, people started coveting non-essential items. They like stuff that someone else has. Maybe they don't need it, but they really want it. They like
If you have one, I want one too.
Exactly.
That's coveting.
We try to have more than our neighbors and more than our friends. We just keep buying. And one reason Americans can do this is in the past, we've had discretionary income, perhaps money that was more spendable. We didn't have to pay our bills with it, and so maybe we could buy something.
Well, now, discretionary would mean you can choose what you want to use that money for, but what is the income that you get that's not discretionary? What kind of things would you use that money for?
That you would use for paying bills.
Like rent?
Like your rent, your light bill,
gasoline.
Those type of things. Paying for gas for your car or
tuition
food,
for school.
Tuition for school, all those types of things. You have to pay those first.
Now, that takes up most of your money usually, doesn't it?
That's right. It does. You use a lot of your money to pay your bills, and then if you have some left over, that's great.
Sometimes people could put that into savings, but that's also discretionary. You can decide if you want to save the money or you want to go out and spend it and eat or buy something for your house. So that means money that is not obligated to be paid for something else. It's money that you can actually choose how you're going to use it for.
And the word discretion means choice, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So those are some good words to remember. You might not remember everything about the article, but let's try to remember some of the vocabulary. And I think it's very good to have choices, and especially discretionary income. It's harder to come by nowadays, isn't it?
Sometimes, yeah. The economy is a little bit shaky right
That's
now.
right. The economy is not so great, so not as much extra money left over.
But remember, possessions actually don't necessarily mean that we're happier. So let's not rationalize and say, if I only had more money, I could be happy. That's not true, is it?
No, it's not true because, I see some people that maybe they don't have very much, but they're very happy people. And you can go to some countries where, in general, the people are poor, but they're very happy. So that tells you that it's not the stuff that they have that's making them happy. It's something else that is making them happy.
There's an idiom that we say in English, money can't buy happiness.
That's true. That's a real fact, actually. So our lesson today on page 41 starts talking about the subject of pleasure versus happiness. Now, in advanced class, we have advanced English, and there's a lot of words we know, but sometimes it's good to go back and think about the words that we use. Do we really know what they mean? So, pleasure versus happiness. Is there a difference, Hazel?
Well, I'm sure there is, and that's probably what we'll find out later. When I hear the word pleasure, I think of something that I enjoy, and when I think of happiness, it's very similar, but maybe something I feel really good, but for a short time, perhaps. Mm-hmm. It's hard for me to know the difference because we often interchange those words.
That's true.
That's right. I think of when I maybe buy something, like we said earlier on yesterday's program, that makes me happy. But it doesn't make you happy forever. But maybe pleasure, you're very pleased with something. So an internal, maybe more of a joy that comes from a pleasure.
Right. Well, we're going to start out with another P word right beginning here. It says the pervasive power of advertising. And before we read today's lesson, let's just look at that word pervasive. It could be confused with another very common English word.
It looks like the word persuasive, doesn't it?
Right.
Pervasive means it's everywhere. It's pervading everywhere you look. And, of course, we're going to find out that word here is talking about advertising. And it is pervasive. It's everywhere.
It's pervasive and persuasive.
Yes, that's true. So those are two good words to know. They're similar, but with a different meaning.
Well, let's read the very first section of our article on page 41. Read out loud. It will be good for your pronunciation, and it will help you remember the words.
Pleasure versus happiness. The pervasive power of advertising is difficult to escape, said William McIntosh, professor of psychology at Georgia Southern University. We're definitely being lied to in a very basic way, he said. The message we're getting is that this stuff will make us happy. But the underlying message is that consuming will make us happy, even though there's lots of research that says, no, absolutely not. A chronic error that consumers make is confusing pleasure with happiness, McIntosh said. If you're getting that buzz from buying whatever it is you're buying, you're getting momentary feedback that something's pleasurable, he said. We almost consider it a signpost toward happiness. But in psychology, it's also been likened to an addiction. We can't stop, even if we say, I know that this isn't going to make me happy, or I know that I can't afford this. There is this compulsion to continue consuming.
So we have a professor of psychology, William McIntosh, that tells us that there's advertising all around us. It's pervasive. And you know what else he says about it?
Well, he says something pretty strong.
Right. He says that the message we're getting is that this stuff will make us happy, but the underlying message is that consuming will make us happy, even though there's lots of research that says no. And he also says that we're being lied to in this situation. And that is a very strong word. He's telling us that even though everyone's doing this, that they're thinking that these things are making them happy. It's not the case at all.
Well, people don't like to be lied to, do they?
No, and yet it happens all the time. You see advertisements for things that will make your face more beautiful and your teeth whiter, and friends will like you more. And
I've tried a lot of that stuff, and it doesn't work, Hazel.
Things that will give you more energy. Everything is out there, and it doesn't mean it's all lies, but a lot of it is. They just want you to buy things.
Right. Maybe it could happen that way, but they certainly can't guarantee it. That's right.
And you think, I think if I had that product, I would have a happier life.
That's right, and that's the advertiser's job, is to make you want something. So we have to remember that they're supposed to make us want something.
And they do sometimes too, don't they?
Right. I think that word fits very well with this persuasive that you said. Pervasive means it's everywhere. Persuasive means they're trying to get you to buy.
And they have pictures of people. They're so happy when they get this and they get that. And they sleep on this bed and they can sleep better. And they buy that car and they can drive better. And oh my goodness, it sounds so good, doesn't it?
It sure does. Let's go shopping.
I don't have enough discretionary income. But, it's true that things do not always make you happy. And sometimes you can do without things or you can make things. And the fewer things we have, the more we have to be creative and think of things. When we were kids, we had to make a lot of our own toys. We couldn't go out and buy them. But still, that taught us to be more creative, too.
That's right. And another thing is you can use your money for better things. Like if someone needs help, you can give them some money to help them. If someone in your neighborhood, for instance, doesn't have any groceries, you can go and buy some food for them and that type of thing. So you can use your discretionary income for other people.
Well, this says here in line 35 that a chronic error that consumers, that's those of us who buy things, this is a chronic error that we make is we confuse pleasure with happiness. Now, chronic sounds like very serious. Like if you have a disease and it's chronic, it means it's going to keep coming back again and again.
Right. It keeps happening. And so this error is something, this mistake is something that is repeated again and again. And we confuse pleasure with happiness.
When you talk about getting the buzz, it's not a way that we always talk, but the word buzz is just a word that's been popular for a few years that just means what? Getting the message.
Right, and it means that you're getting very excited about something. It says if you're getting that buzz from buying something. So when you buy something, you're very excited about this new purchase that you have bought.
Right. Or even riding on a certain airplane and how much nicer it's going to be than another airplane if you ride on our airplane. And you sort of, look at the comfort and stuff. And an airplane's still an airplane, Hazel.
Sure. Some people might say that about a cup of coffee or something. I really get a buzz from this. It's just something I really enjoy.
Right. That's something I would say every morning.
Right.
Okay. And so you get this momentary feedback. You get a response, but the response doesn't last very long.
Well, in psychology, they call this addiction. And you get addicted to things. You say, I can't stop. I know it's not going to make me happy. I can't afford it. But I'm a compulsive buyer. To be a compulsive anything is not good. What about this word compulsion?
Well, this is something that it's a desire that is drawing you into something, a force. It makes you want to do something. So if you're a compulsive buyer, that means when you go to the mall, you want to buy most of the things that you see. So probably you shouldn't go to the mall so often if you're a compulsive buyer. Hazel,
do you think the word compulsion and compulsive is really a good word or a good thing to have?
It can be if that desire is toward good things. If you can't stop doing good things, that would be great. But often when you're compelled or have compulsion for something, it's not always good. It reminds me of another word. We were talking about similar sounds before. Impulse, impulse buyer. That means you didn't plan on buying something, but you see it and you buy it right away. That's an impulse buyer. Maybe you have a compulsion to be an impulse buyer.
So there's a lot of good words we can pick up in these lessons, even though you may not have this problem. You may not be a compulsive buyer. In fact, some men don't even like shopping at all.
It's true.
But you still might like to buy baseball cards or something, to save them, something like that.
That's right. I don't like to shop very often, but if it's something that maybe I really enjoy, then it's okay.
Right. But I think the idea is for us to realize that happiness is something that we can create by our own attitude, by what we do, and making our life meaningful. And it doesn't matter how many things you have. People who have more things are not necessarily, and usually aren't, happier than people who don't. Now, that's a very interesting thing to think about.
Now, we talked yesterday about relationship with your stuff, and actually we know that people are more important. We need to have good relationships with people and friends. That can make us happy. That can give us joy, not a lot of stuff.
Well, and we know, especially in this month of January, which has a lot of New Year's and new beginnings in it, we're thinking, I want to do better this year. I want to have I want to have a happy, positive look at the new year. And so, well, what am I going to do this year? Remember, it doesn't matter how many things you buy, if you have a new car or not, or a new apartment or whatever it is, your happiness is not connected to this stuff. Mm-hmm. So I think that's what we would call the moral of this lesson. Don't you think so?
I think that's a good lesson.
Well, let's read the rest of it.
Depend on all our stuff.
Okay, let's read on about positive consumerism.
Positive consumerism. In her own way, Maggie Davis, consumer editor for Time Out magazine in London, wants to relieve the stress of stuff with her book, 101 Things to Buy Before You Die. The title of the book is quite tongue-in-cheek, Davis said, but it's meant to be an inspirational guide to the best of the best. And that's not always the most expensive thing. Shopping can be very shallow if you do it badly, Davis said. It can be like reading trashy novels or watching really bad TV or eating junk food. But if you shop well and you really buy quality things, you actually can improve the quality of your life. But there's also aspiration and dream involved. But whatever someone else may think of your stuff, remember, it's your stuff, author Davis said. If you love something, keep it.
I've seen that Time Out magazine in London. In fact, you can even see it online sometimes. And it tells you all the things that's going on in London. Shows, plays you can go to, where to buy things. It's a good little kind of an information magazine. And Maggie Davis, she's the consumer editor for this magazine. And what is she trying to tell us here?
Well, it looks like there's 101 things we should buy before we die.
Mm-hmm. Well,
is
I wonder
true?
about that. Well, I don't know. Don't read the magazine, Hazel. It might influence you, right?
Well, actually, though, it says they want to relieve the stress of stuff, and that's why she wrote this book. So perhaps it's not really trying to get you to buy 101 things.
Well, you notice here that it says it's tongue-in-cheek, and that's a very good idiom to know, because a lot of times we say things and we mean them to be funny. They're just the opposite. If we say, well, why don't you do that, we mean you better not do that. So tongue-in-cheek is a little hard to explain. How would you explain it, Brandon?
Well, I think it's when you're saying something and it means the exact opposite, just kind of what you just said, Doris. When she says 101 things to buy before you die, she doesn't really mean 101 things that you need to buy. She's saying, wait a minute, let's think about all the stuff that people are trying to buy, and let's take a look at that and try to solve that problem. So it's really the complete opposite of what the title says.
Hazel likes to say things tongue-in-cheek sometimes. Did you notice that?
Yeah, she does.
Oh, maybe sometimes.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of fun sometimes to say something, and you know that people know that you're not thinking that, but it's just the opposite, see?
Right.
It's kind of an interesting way to do things. I think Americans do that a lot, don't they?
I think so. Sometimes we use the word, sarcasm? A little bit sarcastic.
But, you know, when you say tongue-in-cheek, actually, when you say something like that that's not true, you could blink your eye and let them know, I don't mean it. Or you could put your tongue in your cheek and say, and they kind of know you don't. So you could put your tongue over to the side of your cheek, showing people that I don't really mean that.
Because sometimes it's hard to know, especially if you don't know a person very well, it's hard to know if they're being serious or if they're being sarcastic or using tongue-in-cheek or what.
Yeah, right. And so it's kind of, if they say, well, you know, I don't think you should do that, and then they put their tongue in their cheeks, they think, oh, maybe I should.
Yeah. So sometimes you could even just say, just kidding. A lot of times we'll do that. Or if people know you well enough, they'll know if it's tongue-in-cheek or not. But you're right. I've been confused sometimes because I don't know someone and they say something very seriously and you think, are they kidding or what? And sometimes they are. Sometimes they're not.
That's right.
So let people in on whether it's a joke or not.
Well, put your tongue over in your cheek and let them know it's not true. But shopping can be very shallow if you do it badly. Now, how can shopping be shallow? We're going to talk about swimming in shallow water. How can shopping be shallow?
Well, some people don't even think about it. It's just a compulsion, like we talked about, to buy. And I had an aunt like that. She always had to go shopping and buy things, and then she didn't know what to do with the things she bought. She'd usually give them away to other people that didn't need them. So she was very generous, but she didn't really stop and think about it. It was just a process for her.
I thought it was pretty funny here the way it said that, it can be like reading trashy novels. Trash, of course, is los. It's just garbage. And why would you be reading garbage novels? Garbage novels are just things that don't have a lot of point to them. They used to have a lot of what they call love stories, and they would all be about the same, and they were very cheap, and you could read them on the airplane or riding on the bus or something, but they didn't have a lot of meaning to them. And they're kind of trashy in a way. They're not really well written or anything. Mm-hmm. And so, well, why do you even read them then? See, well, because you don't have to concentrate very much, and so trashy novel, or you watch really bad TV. Why am I watching this program anyway? It's not even very interesting, right?
Right. So maybe it's the same with shopping. Sometimes we hear that voice that says, do I need this? Why am I buying this? And sometimes we need to slow down and say, yeah, maybe I should just go home without this.
Well, you eat junk food sometimes because it's easy to get. That's one thing, isn't it?
Right, yeah. Sometimes you go to the local convenience store and you're in a hurry and you just grab something, even though it's junk food and not good for you, but it's convenient.
So that's kind of shallow buying, isn't it?
Right. Sometimes we buy things just because it's on sale. We don't need it or want it, but we think we're saving money. But actually, you're not.
Right.
If you do shop well and you buy quality things, you can improve the quality of your life. Is that true?
Yeah, if you really need something, and for instance, maybe you need a new appliance, something for your kitchen, a new oven, and that's going to help you cook. So that improves the quality of your life. So some things are actually good to buy, but you just have to determine whether or not it's good or bad.
Don't forget to invite me over for dinner when you cook that meal in that new oven.
Good idea. Count me in.
But there's also aspiration and dream involved. Can you explain that sentence? That's in line 36, Hazel.
Well, sometimes we just really want something and we're saving our money for it and we just can't wait to get it. There's a joy, a goal involved. Now we often just say, I need it, I'm going to charge it. But when I was growing up, I would have to save my money and wait, and then or wait till it gets on sale. So that whole process, of course you want it right away, but even just thinking about it is a good thing. It gives you kind of hope that in the future you'll have something. That's kind of like aspiration or dreaming about it.
I think it means a lot more to you also if you can't buy it the minute you see it and you like it. And that helps you think about it a little bit. And it's just like a trip. Sometimes the planning of the trip is just as much fun as the trip. Mm-hmm. But if you say, I think I'll go down, get on a plane, and go to Hawaii, and don't think about it, it doesn't mean as much as if you say, now, where am I going to go? What are we going to do? And that's the same way with spending your money. I think sometimes it's more fun to save and plan than just go out and use your credit card. Don't you think so?
I agree, because you're focusing on getting something new, and it's exciting, and at the same time, you're learning how to save, and you're learning how to use your discretion. We've talked a lot about discretion. You're learning how to choose what you need and what you don't need, and then you may decide, I really don't even want that anymore, and then you have the money saved and you didn't waste it, so it's important to do that.
Well, it sounds like good advice, so let's remember to do that in this new year. But whatever someone else may think of your stuff, mine or Hazel's, I don't know if Brandon has much, but it's your stuff. And I keep some of my stuff because it reminds me of places where I've been in Ulamochi or Kazakhstan or something. It might be a little thing, or from Sweden, but it's not really very valuable. But it reminds me of that place, and I think of the people there. And I think it's okay to keep some of that stuff. But just to go out and buy things that somebody else has used and don't mean anything to you, I think we have to be a little careful about that.
Mm-hmm. Reminds me of something my cousin said one time. She said, I hope you get what you want and want what you get. Sometimes we get things we think we want, and then later we realize that we didn't want it at all, or we don't like it anymore.
That's pretty good advice there, isn't it? So, and to sum this up for today, what have we actually learned from this lesson?
Well, we have learned that shopping can be shallow. It can mean nothing, basically. So you have to think of what is the purpose of this purchase. And then we also learned that we can make quality purchases, such as an appliance or something like that will help our life be better. And we also learned that we dream of things to buy, and we can save money to buy those new things.
All right. So I think it's been good as far as the words, vocabulary. What words do you think out of these 2 days of lessons should we try to remember and use in our vocabulary, Hazel?
Well, remember pervasive and persuasive. Pervasive means it's something's all around us, and persuasive means it's trying to get us to do something.
Okay, and I think we could also think about consumerism. The idea of consumerism is sort of, I mean, you are the consumer yourself. So I'm the one that buys things. I'm a consumer. But what is consumerism?
Doris, consumerism is just buying more and more things, and we see lots of that today.
Okay, we are the consumers, and we buy things, and it's the whole process, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Lots of people buying things is consumerism.
But stuff is not enough, and happiness is in what you do for others and what you are today. So remember, things will not make you happy, but you can use things to make others happy.
Right.
So have a good, happy time during this season, and we have a few more days left in this wonderful month of January this year. So we'll see you again when we get together around the radio or wherever you are. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.